I mean, that's a side issue, but it's just that in history, we just get continual validation from research like yours.
No, I don't think it is a side issue. I think it's right to the core of the thing, because one of the things that has come out is how deeply embedded the Russian communists, Stalin's agents, were in our government at the time of the Second World War. Nobody knows this. It's only come out now because of Venona. Venona was our breaking of the Russian codes, and this has been kept top secret all the way to the end of the 90s. And what we did is we knew, all this talk about McCarthy being, a crazy man and he didn't know what he was talking about. Everything he said was true. Whatever he was, he was being fed some information from this Venona. The Russians had top-level agents all the way to the top of the government, right into FDR's office. I mean, they were.
Well, let's go over some of that, because in the last 4 or 5 years, I've seen New York Times, Washington Post headlines, even Russian headlines. McCarthy was right. Secret documents released show that it was giant, but that it was a shared deal. There were U.S. agents there, and at the level of the Fabian socialist, like Dr. Carol Quigley wrote at Georgetown in '69, Bill Clinton's mentor, the bankers just wanted somebody to consolidate. Fascist, communist, socialist, they don't care. So I would say it's all... that's kind of like eugenics came from the U.S. and England to Hitler. So it isn't that there were Nazis in America. The Nazis' daddy was in America and England. It's not that the Soviets were infiltrating us. It was that the British intelligence was their daddy. It's so sophisticated how they create the enemies and they create the conflicts. But go ahead.
Well, you know much more about that than I do. All I know is the Patton connection, and I do know that Patton was up against a government, the FDR administration, which was totally infiltrated by Russian agents who were bound and determined to get rid of Patton and to get rid of anybody who would stand up to the Russians. As far as it went further, I wasn't able to deal with that, but it was just rife, and so. I think we were talking about Patton and exactly what had happened to him. And Patton had been banished from his jobs in Europe after the war. They didn't need him anymore. He was going to go home and he was going to tell all these secrets, and he was going to fight to get us to fight Russia. And it was the last day before he was to go home, and he was driving down in his Cadillac touring car a lonely road, and all of a sudden a truck comes up. They actually had stopped at a railroad track, and there are 3 people in Patton's car. There's Patton in the back seat. There's his general aide named Gay, General Gay, and a driver. And up ahead, as they're waiting for this train to go by, they're stopped at the tracks. They see a truck. It's an army truck, and it's way in front of them, but it's stopped on the side of the road. Well, when the train goes by, this truck, they start up, and this truck starts up towards them. Very, very suspicious situation. And then it comes right almost abreast of them and suddenly turns in front of Patton. And the driver can't do anything but try to turn his car, and they have a collision. It's not a big collision, but it's almost between 10 and 30 miles per hour. Patton is said, they say, to have flown. There was a large area in the back seat. He's said to have flown forward, hit his head, broken his neck there, and then come back on top of General Gay. Bazada told me that he was in they were looking at and commenting on all the clumps of war refuge. And right at that point where the accident happened, Bazada was behind there with another with a Russian agent, and he shot a specially designed weapon. Didn't shoot bullets; it shot a bolt, which would look just like from an accident. And Patton was looking out the window, and the last thing he's supposed to have said, according to Gay, was, "Look at that." And then, bam, this accident occurs. That was the moment that he could shoot. And Bazada was a world-class shooter. I mean,
and it's a kinetic energy weapon. I mean, they know it's a heavy weapon. They know it's going to bash. It's going to hurt somebody to make it look like they're hurt. If it doesn't break the neck, it doesn't matter because you get to kill them once they're in the ambulance or at the hospital.
This is exactly right. You know, the CIA, if you read their manuals, the best way to kill someone and make it look like an accident is an accident, because that's what everybody figures is going to happen. Anyway, Patton ends up with a broken neck and a tremendous gash across going from the bridge of his nose all the way to the top of his head. You could literally lift a flap of skin up and see the bone. And he's bleeding to death. He's paralyzed. And I'm telling you, at least 100 people came out of the woodwork. Generals, ambulances. It was just strange. This is a lonely road on a Sunday morning, and they just came out of the woodwork. Anyway, Patton is not taken to a hospital there in the city where he is. He's taken down to Heidelberg, which is about 30 miles away. They figure he's going to die, but he's really, really strong, and he begins to rally, and he's doing so well that they're going to fly him home. This is 1945. This is December 45, but it would have been a terrible trip for anybody who wasn't really strong. And just before he's about to go home, he has a sudden downturn. And if you'll read in Target Patton how the Russian, there is later on a Russian who actually goes to one of the Patton grandchildren and says, we actually poisoned him. So they knocked him off. They poisoned him. That's the way you get them. You know, if you can't get them in the actual accident, then they go to the hospital, and then it's easy to get to them in various ways and kill him. There was no autopsy of Patton. That's another strange thing.
So we see this over and over again. Why do you think the family's silent? Because they're scared of the system?
I just can't answer that question. I always go back to the Kennedys. Why are they silent and won't let people? It's because I think either they know something they don't want to get out, or they feel it's besmirching their,
Well, I know most of them are scared. I know a lot of times women, when their husbands get murdered, come out and start saying something. The cops come and threaten them and then say, look, your kids are going to be all right if you shut up. Well, and I have, Kennedy's secretary went public and said it was an inside job. And, of course, said that Jackie believed that. And I've talked to the eyewitnesses that talked to the secretary. So we know that goes on. We know that JFK Jr. was reopening an investigation when he died. So
they will not talk about it, and the same way that the Patton family would not talk about it. But it is you'll also read in Target Patton that Mrs. Patton suspected something because she hired two private eyes to find out. She wasn't satisfied at the end what had happened. Those private eyes, I don't know what happened to their reports. And this brings up the other thing. After all of those people at that accident scene, the next thing I did is I went to the National Archives to find the reports by the MPs who were there. We know they were there. Nothing is there. Every report is gone. We're not talking.
So then you have the evidence of the cover-up. A famous death happens, and there's no report of it, but there would have been a report for a regular private being killed.
Oh, absolutely. And we know the reports were written. I know through other documents that I have found at the National Archives where these are mentioned that there were at least 5 reports or investigations.
Yeah. So the cover-up is evidence of the crime, one of the classic evidences, not to mention Kibono, who benefits, talking to the gentleman that shot him with the kinetic weapon, the Special Forces operative. Was he sad about doing this in hindsight? Is that why he was speaking up? I mean, murdering a great patriot?
A tremendous guilt about his whole life. He not only killed Patton, he killed many people. Our own people, the OSS. And this was the climate that it came from. In World War II, anybody who talked too much, if you were a clandestine, an operative, an OSS, if you're talking too much, they're going to get rid of you. And they did so. And we did it on many people in World War II. And he had killed many people. Then he'd stayed on in Europe, and he'd become a freelance. And he had a group. And they would do things like rescue colonel for the French from the Algerians. And he was guilt-ridden. And this is one of the reasons why he told me all this.
Well, we're going to have you back up, Mr. Wilcox, just to get into that founding moment of OSS and the CIA, because it's all the same tricks today, the near future. But we'll talk some more about this in the final segment straight ahead. The book is Target Patton. The website's Infowars.com. And don't forget, folks, we got the new anti-tyranny ball caps. Let me tell you a little bit about one of our great sponsors, HomeGain.com. This is the place to get you started buying or selling a home, finding a realtor, and getting any real estate questions answered. Go to HomeGain.com and see what I'm talking about. All you need to do is type in your home address, and you will get an instant free estimate of your home's value online. This is a great way to be able to monitor the value of your home. And again, it's absolutely free. There are tons of tools to help you. For instance, if you want to remodel your home, go to HomeGain.com. Use their Home Sale Maximizer to help you determine which home improvements can most increase your home's value before you put it on the market. For 10 years, these folks have been helping home sellers and buyers. Visit their link at Infowars.com. Look for Max, the orange HomeGain gorilla, to help you with any real estate needs you might have. You'll love this site. It's HomeGain.com.